Next up in our series, we continue our chat with Marine Servonnat, project manager of Ingwe Leopard Research, as we uncover how this delightful lady from France fell in love with Africa. Marine shares how she brought her passion for research and love for leopards together to establish what just might be the most significant contribution to their conservation we've seen in a while. Marine, in the previous episode of our podcast together, we were chatting about one of the outcomes that we were hoping to have from your research was to understand whether leopard populations are increasing, are they stable, are they declining? Why do we want to do this? What is the conservation status of leopards at the moment?
So unfortunately, the leopard population in South Africa is declining. And if we look at the IUCN Red List, so the IUCN is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. So that's a worldwide organization that is listing how endangered species are in general. So if we look at leopards, in 2002, they were considered as a least concern. So they were doing all right. And then 2008, they went to the higher category, which is near threatened. And then 2016, they went to the vulnerable category, and that's vulnerable to extinction category. And what we want to avoid is that if the leopards reach an even higher category, which is then endangered, then it's critically endangered, and then in extinction in the wild. So we need to do we need to work on preserving the leopards for South Africa, but also of course at the global scale. Just for everyone to understand, the IUCN is looking at the global leopard population, not only for South Africa, right? Leopards occurs in many other countries, in many other continents as well. So the global population is in decline, but South Africa as well. So yeah, that's why it's important. We need to understand, and when we understand, then we can act.
Exactly. And I think that is a perfect way to get us onto the next thing that I want to understand and have our listeners understand is about you, Marine. You have this spectacular French accent and a spectacular matching French surname. What are you doing in South Africa? What happened?
I don't know where you get the French accent from. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know. No, I still have my French accent. But yeah, it's been a couple of years that I'm in South Africa now. Just to give a bit of context, my background is research and conservation. So I did my master in Belgium, and then this is where I met my partner, who was South African, and then moved to South Africa. So yeah, fell twice in love with South Africa, partner, and then the country. And basically, yeah, just of course, really enjoyed my time in South Africa. And when I first saw a leopard, this is where my heart rate starting going up. Because I don't know, I can't explain it, but I'm just completely fascinated by leopards. But that's basically from South Africa to leopards, but there's many stops in between.
Yes, I'm sure there are many stops in between, but one of the stops in between that I want you to specify on for me, please, is your time in the Okavango Delta, because I have a feeling that that's kind of how this whole Ingwe leopard research started.
Exact, absolutely. So I was very lucky to spend 3 years in the Okavango Delta. I was employed as a camp manager by Great Plains Conservation. And it was quite amazing just because I actually had no background in tourism industry initially. But the company just enjoyed our background in conservation. So I was employed with my partner there. And it's basically by learning about the safari industry, how everything works, by seeing all of the guides and especially the guests being excited when coming back on game drive, seeing all of this amazing wildlife, and then showing me all of these pictures that they had taken on drive, where I was most of the time very jealous about. I'm not going to lie.
I'm sure, but, yeah.
I was very happy for them, but very sad for myself. But yeah, that's how everything came along. Basically, it's like growing into the safari industry, but without never forgetting my background in research and conservation. Kind of like these two fields kind of like got together and gave me the whole idea about Ingwe.
And I think that was, as you said, with the guests and the guides returning from game drives with all these magnificent leopard sightings photographed, that's citizen science, isn't it? That's what they were doing.
No, exactly. So I thought there must be a way for the safari industry in general to get more involved into conservation. And I was thinking these guides and the guests, they have constant access to information on wildlife. And what if they could actually start collecting data and help research and conservation organization? So I decided to do some tests actually in my camp, try to set up the app, get some of the guides to go on game drive, ask the guests, what would they think about participating to such a project? Would they be happy to donate their pictures for research and conservation? And globally, it was very well received. And people say, of course, like if I can help, more than happy to. So then, the idea carried on growing in my head, and I thought that would be probably my next project.
That's fantastic, Marine. That's really great. And that, I think, leads us to a little side introduction of a fabulous couple, Will and Carol Fox from On Track Safaris. Expand on that for me, please.
Yes. I got in touch with them when I was actually in the Hoedspruit area initially, when they were doing themselves a lot of work in that area regarding human conflict mitigation. They were removing snares. They were helping many leopards as well. They did also educational program. So this is how I got in touch with them when I was in Hoedspruit working for another organization. But then before going to Botswana and to the Delta, when we were waiting for our visas, I wrote a whole research proposal to Will and Carol about actually human-wildlife conflict perception in the Hoedspruit areas. The whole proposal was accepted, but then I got my visa to Botswana. I was never able to to do the research. But then I came again when I knew I was leaving Botswana. I came again with a new proposal saying, "Oh, I got an idea, and actually, I'd like to present it to you." And there is already like a similar research that had been done in the Delta before. So I wanted to present them the whole idea and see if they were happy to. And yeah, with a bit of work, eventually they said yes.
That's
so
great.
Working on a whole new project.
That's fantastic. But I think they have the philosophy that tourism is well positioned to finance and support conservation. And I think it's that principle that they've had that led to the On Track Foundation being established, right? Because that's
yes, you're 100% right.
That's who funds the Ingwe Leopard Research is On Track Foundation.
Yeah. So they actually created On Track Safaris not to start making money, but to find a way to fund research and conservation projects. So that's the whole spirit, and I think this is what the safari industry should be a bit about also.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the previous episode, we had a conversation about the extinction of experience and what that means and how we as people trying to coexist with wildlife can get that reconnection going again. I think one of the things that's very significant is the citizen science, which we mentioned with the guests and the guides at these various lodges, and of course collaboration. You have earmarked the Waterberg and the Hoedspruit areas as the regions that you're going to be researching. Can you share with us, please, how many reserves you have and what they look like? Who are your collaborators is what I'm trying to understand.
So yeah, I mean it's a growing network of like completely different stakeholders. But basically, in terms of the number of reserves, there's about 23, if I'm not mistaken. I think 23 is the right number. 23 reserves that are participating. So that goes from wildlife estates. So wildlife estates are really like small reserves that are about 700 hectares. Where people actually live most of the time, like residential areas, but where you can find wildlife, and part of these areas are left untouched. So that I have a couple of wildlife estates. Then there's like also private lands that are participating. There's also open reserves. Some of the reserves are actually open, for example, to Kruger Parks. Some are completely fenced. Some have people living in it. Some don't have people living in it. So it's a whole variety of actually of type of land that are participating. And it is very exciting to see so many different people actually coming together and deciding to work hand in hand and to fall under one umbrella, which is Ingwe. So that's, yeah, this is often say like collaboration is a new competition in the sense that, yeah, that collaboration is a new way now to get together, and we need to stop competing, but rather walk all in the same direction.
For sure, because at the end of the day, we don't want to have the South African leopard population decline even further. And
absolutely,
as we said in the previous episode, there's so many obstacles and so many challenges that these leopards are facing. You know, we need to have everybody batting in one direction, and that's to conserve and protect them.
Also, just to mention on that, I mean, the whole safari industry and actually a lot of the economy of South Africa relies on tourism. So if we don't protect those flagship species, so this important species that everyone comes to see and they currently declining, people are going to stop visiting South Africa. We're going to have massive economical issues. So that's also how everything is linked up. You know, without these species, we won't have the ecotourism industry. Without tourism, well, we don't have an economy anymore. So
no, that's a very valid point.
Everything is linked.
Yes, it's a very valid point. Thank you for touching on that. How can people learn about conservation and research? You know, yes, it's one thing to have a safari experience, but I think if people wanted to support Ingwe and support the collaborators of Ingwe, I know that one of your partners is the Transfrontier Africa, for example. Can you speak to how people can experience conservation and research by working or joining them?
So we'll talk just now about a bit more Transfrontier Africa and the other partner, WEI. But the first thing is like whoever wants to come to South Africa, if you visit one of the reserves that is partnering with the project, then you will get involved into Ingwe automatically, because the guides will talk to you about the project. You will be able to donate your pictures. So by joining any of the reserves that are already part of Ingwe, you're going to have a whole different safari experience. You will become a citizen scientist, not only a tourist anymore. You're a citizen scientist. So yeah, you can have a look at all of the reserves that are involved in the project on the website if you want to pick them and for your next safaris. But yeah, the other possibility is indeed to come and spend some time with Transfrontier Africa and Wildlife and Ecological Investments. So these are two of the partners that have volunteers, but also, and most importantly, actually interns that are coming to help out and to deal with the high amount of data that is being collected. So those two, they will really help with data analysis, would get students involved, would get them to write reports for the reserve, and also to help with doing future publication. So if you want an experience, I really would advise traveling with both of them, because then you will participate in a really meaningful project. And of course, one of them being Ingwe. So those two.
Fantastic. That's great. It's very exciting. It kind of makes me wish I was 19 or 20 years old again and could re-visualize or invent my vocation.
Well, to be honest, I think a lot of older people also go to those those places. So I think it is accessible to everyone. I think.
Yeah, but I mean, who knew that I could be a leopard researcher? You know.
Yes, absolutely. To be honest, not all volunteer organizations are good. but I think but I know these two, they've published, and I think from the moment that you can see that a volunteer organization or an internship organization actually participated in publication, then they're actually serious. So yeah, you can trust those two.
Okay, good. Thank you for that guidance. Okay, so now we keep harping on about citizen science and donate your photographs to conservation. How do people do this? What is the technology? Because I mean, that's got to be the main driver behind people being able to share, right? Is some form of technology. Do you want to share some information about how these technologies are available and the best places to be using them?
Yes. So basically, I mean, nowadays everyone has a smartphone. So, and with a smartphone, everyone is using so many different apps. And luckily, there is also an app that I'm using for Ingwe. And then I get everyone who wants to get involved in the project that they can download on their phone and start logging leopard data. So that app is called a Smart Conservation Mobile App. So it can be found on the Apple Store or the Play Store. And basically, so I would just have to send you the QR code and then for you to scan it and then to get the project, the citizen science project on your phone. And then wherever you go on the game drive, you can start logging information. So all of the researchers that are participating are entering the data on the mobile app. So whether it's actually sighting data, so when they see a leopard, or whether it is also camera traps data. Because as I said, like out of all of the researchers that are participating, some of them are wildlife estates, and a lot of the residents from those wildlife estates have camera traps in their garden to have an understanding of who is passing by when they're sleeping. And all of this information can also be uploaded on the app or sent directly to me. But yeah, the Smart Conservation app is the one I'm using at the moment.
Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward enough. Is there another way people can also submit their photographs? I know that there's the African carnivore wild book that is a pretty exciting development for you. So share some more about that, please.
Yeah, the African carnivore wild book, before I dive a bit more into it, if it didn't exist, the product would probably not exist. So that's just to get people to understand how important is it to Ingwe. But basically, the African Carnivore Wild Book, or ACW for short, it's a platform that uses AI and that helps with individual identification of the top 5 main carnivores. So it works on leopards, wild dogs, both species of hyenas, lions, and cheetah, and using patterns recognition. And all of the images that are being submitted to Ingwe are uploaded on ACW together with GPS location, date, and time. And then the amazing AI sorts out the picture, detects the leopard on a picture, and then we'll run a match. Basically, we look at image A, compare it with the whole database, and try to see if both individuals on each picture are the same or if they are 2 different ones. So that's a fantastic tool that allows you very quickly sort through all of the images and to identify all of those leopards.
I'm sure you are AI's new best friend, right? Because can you just talk us through, in the old days, Kaz says using parentheses in the air, what is the method that you would have followed to see whether a leopard photograph you've received is a brand new individual on the scene, or is it the same one that keeps being photographed from different angles over and over and over again?
Look, it's not that old, because when I was in Hoedspruit, which was 2016, 2017, and I was working in Hoedspruit, I was working with a volunteer organization, and there we had the volunteers going through all of the images of all of the identifiable animals, so like, let's say, leopards, and we had ID kits, which were books, basically, with leopard images, and for each image that were being captured of a leopard, we had the volunteers going one by one page at a time, trying to see if there was a match. And it was extremely time consuming. Most of the people were doing a lot of mistakes. So it adds like a lot of human error, but also very tedious work. And the thing is, like, AI allows to deal with a huge amount of data rapidly and with very little error, or to say no errors, compared to flipping through a book one picture at a time. So that was not a long time ago. And I think some people are still using that method. It's time to move to AI now.
It definitely is time, yes. And not only time to move to get things done quicker, but also save buckets and buckets of money.
Yes, absolutely.
In terms of resource and sitting and trying to have a human identify one species, one individual to another.
It allows researchers to focus on something a bit different also, rather than the huge amount of data handling. It's like camera traps also take hours and hours to go through if you have to go through one at a time. But other platforms also exist that are sorting out the camera trap images, and all of the one with empty images would go in one folder. All of your impala or antelope pictures would go in one folder. All of that. So that's absolutely fantastic to have AI now helping you deal through all of this data, and then you can focus as a researcher on other aspects of the work.
Yes, that's great. Just for me to have a clear understanding, and we don't need to go into too much detail about how the AI is working, because we're going to do that in our next episode when we have a chat to the fabulous Maureen from African Carnivore Wild Book. But you as the researcher, once AI has been given your new image, it doesn't do the actual match, right? What it does is it presents you with the closest matches. The human, in other words, you, Marine, are still the one who has to say yes or no.
Yes, yes, that's 100% correct. And I think it's important to keep like a human aspect to it also, not to rely 100% on the AI. And it is a fun part to do. So good. And I'm soon going to have some of the students from some of the interns from Transport to Africa and from WEI to help out and to be trained on that platform as well, which is going to give them a whole new experience, which is very exciting.
That's fabulous. I'm excited for you. Marine, I don't want to labor too much on the amazing magic that African Carnivore Wild Book do, because we are going to be chatting with Maureen. It seems that there's a lot of data on there. I have gone and had a look, not obviously as a researcher, but certainly as a contributor. And there's a lot of information and images and records of leopard sightings. Is there anybody else that you know of specifically that's making use of this app?
Yes, which is very exciting. So actually the On Track Foundation became one of the biggest contributor of leopard images, I think 2 months ago on ACW, but very closely followed by and Beyond and the Cape Leopard Trust. So S3, we are the 3 biggest contributor on ACW. I think there's about 7,000 images of leopards on the platform. So that's just for leopards for South Africa, knowing that ACW also covers other countries, and then other organizations are using it for other species as well. But for me, this platform is all about collaboration as well, because the fact that I think in total we're 6 organizations using it for leopards, but it means that the more people we use that, the bigger the database will be. And then if a leopard from the On Track Foundation gets a match, so get the same as a leopard, let's say, from and Beyond, then we'll both get a notification, and then we'll be able to share further information if we want to. So the more people are going to use that platform, the more data we're going to get, and the better we'll be able to refine those leopards numbers.
It's incredible. 7,000 images already. I mean, I have this picture of you sitting in a little office with piles and piles of photograph albums, and what that would have meant for you previously. It's
not only for that 7,000 is for all on ACW.
Yeah, but I mean, still 7,000 images is a significant amount of work for people that are researching. I'm pretty sure that and Beyond would have some kind of research involved in the leopards that they experience. I know for a fact that Cape Leopard Trust also is conducting research. So between the 3 organizations and 7,000 images, if it was not for ACW and their AI, that would be a vast volume of work for everybody to get through.
Absolutely. It would be impossible, actually.
Yes. And also sharing with each other if they so wished. So there's obviously going to be concerns from our citizen scientists in terms of uploading what could be determined as being sensitive information of where they have sighted leopard. But just to be clear, and again, we will go through this in more detail with Maureen when we chat with her, that the security of the metadata through ACW is quite robust and significant. Is that your understanding?
Yes, no, absolutely. So like you will hear a bit more about it on the next episode. So yeah, ACW is extremely secure, but the smart app is also extremely secure, meaning that whoever is going to be logging a sighting on the app from the moment it is exported to me, basically, it disappears from that phone. So it means that, let's imagine someone gets their phone being stolen, all of the data won't be stolen with that phone. So it will be gone already. It arrives on my computer on a secure cloud-based platform. So yeah, security, of course, is something very important for all of these animals that are threats. Yeah.
And I think for researchers in general, the fact that you are handling what could be perceived as sensitive data, people need to have an understanding that it is going to be worked with properly, right?
No, absolutely. And it is one of the challenges about collaboration, and I had to reassure all of the researchers that were participating, that signed a data sharing agreement, that data security is very important. And we'll never publish like data that are recent or like to the general public. We are going to make sure that the data are going to be a bit delayed, let's say, compared to when we put them public.
Okay. All right. Good to know. It sounds to me, Marine, like you've got a model here that if we can get this off the ground and collaborations are coming together and people are contributing their data and their photos and their sightings, it sounds to me like this doesn't have to be limited to just leopard, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. I think it's a bit what the aim of Ingwe is, also trying to demonstrate something a bit new, trying to demonstrate that citizen science can help conservation. And I think that it can be replicable like in other places, not only in South Africa, but it could be, why not in the Pantanal with the jaguars, or it could be replicated with other species. I mean, for South Africa, I'm thinking the hyenas that are highly persecuted here. So that could be also a model where citizen scientists are helping to protect hyenas. So we're trying to demonstrate something. If it works, and it will work, we'll get bigger, and then we'll get more people involved and more species covered also.
I think that's a very great point, and it's a great goal. I certainly am standing in the wings, raising the flag and the pom-poms, egging you on, because as we mentioned, leopard are an umbrella keystone species. They're not the only ones. Lions are, wild dogs are, hyenas are. So by default, you're automatically protecting anything that's underneath that and getting us reconnected to that experience and hopefully starting to put a stop on the loss of biodiversity.
Yes, no, 100%.
Marine, we are almost running out of time for this particular conversation, but I wanted to make sure that people have an understanding of how Ingwe gets its boots on the ground and people out there doing things. Of course, money doesn't come out of thin air. I know that you're preparing to launch something very special on 1st of August. Do you want to share that with us, please?
Yes, so if you follow us on social media, so on Facebook and Instagram, you will stay in touch with the whole project. So you just look for Ingwe Leopard Research, and especially now, I'm going to launch on the 1st of August a crowdfunding campaign that aimed at raising £15,000 that will really help extend the reach of the project, help with the data analysis, help with mitigation for different threats for the leopards. So if you want to participate, the crowdfunding is actually reward based, which is very exciting. So it means that for any donation, you will get something in return. And so, yeah, I think the best way for you to stay in touch is just to follow us on social media. So Ingwe Leopard Research on Instagram and on Facebook. And then you will also get links to our newsletter. So if you want to hear which reserve are participating to the project, how much data is being submitted, how does it look to run such a project? Every now and then I share some insights about how is it for me to run such a project. So yeah, you're welcome to check us out. But yeah, most important date to remember now is 1st of August. Crowdfunding campaign is launched and it's reward based.
And of course, like anything about anything, sharing is caring. So it's not limited to just people listening to this particular episode of Conservation Conversation, spreading the word far and wide. Okay,
exactly.
That's great. Marine, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Kaz. It was a pleasure, and see you at the next episode.
Thanks for taking the time to listen. Please see the various links to the crowdfunded Marine mentioned, as well as collaborators Transfrontier Africa and Wildlife and Ecological Investment. We hope you'll join us on our next conservation conversation.